I want to welcome you guys to the shir, Gavin, Michael, Arthur, and myself. What we're going to do is start off with the blessings of the Torah for the morning, which we do before we learn about the written and oral Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asuk b'divrei Torah. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu et divrei Toratcha b'finu v'fi'amcha beit Yisrael v'niyeh nachnu v'tze'etzenu v'tze'etzemcha beit Yisrael. Kulanu yodei shemecha v'lemdei toratecha lishma. Baruch atah Adonai lemei Torah le'amo Yisrael. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacha banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu torato. Baruch atah Adonai notenu Torah. Amen. Blessed art you, Adonai God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments and has commanded us to engross ourselves in the words of Torah. Please, Adonai God, sweeten the words of your Torah in our mouth and in the mouth of your people, the family of Israel. May we and our offspring and the offspring of your people, the house of Israel, all of us, know your name and study your Torah for its own sake. Blessed art you, Adonai, teach us Torah to his people Israel. Blessed art you, Adonai God, King of the universe, who selected us from all the peoples and gave us his Torah. Blessed art you, Adonai, giver of the Torah. Amen.
Amen. I just want to make a comment, Damon, just before you start.
Sure. No problem.
In Simcha's shiur yesterday, they spoke about a teacher is supposed to pass on his legacy to his students. You should have found a much younger crowd because I'm not so sure we're going to outlive you.
Listen, with Arthur's cardiovascular problems, my immune deficiency problems, your fibromyalgia, I think Marco's in the running for the one that's going to cross the finishing line, to be honest.
Yeah, you must always find a younger audience to make sure. You made a mistake there. Anyway, it's too late now.
Marco's the healthiest one out of the whole bunch. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to, before we get started, I just want to thank you for yesterday. I think your questions helped me learn the material better because we're all learning as students. And I know if I don't prepare, you guys are all very sharp and you're going to catch me out in 2 minutes. That's not why I prepare. It's just a fun aspect of it. But the reality is you're helping with my self-discipline, and hopefully I'm helping with yours, like having a chavrusa, because you're all my chavrusas. I'm not your teacher. And it's like when I used to train with my dad at gym, we would motivate each other just simply because I would rock up on time, knowing that he was there waiting for me and vice versa. So it helps create a little bit of stimulus. So what happened yesterday was as follows. We discussed that the subcategories of fire and the primary category of fire was exactly the same. So we've gone through all the listings of Rav Papa where they are similar, but we have not got through the listings where Rav Papa is saying it's different, where the subcategories are different to the primary categories. And we kind of at a loss for words because we say we've gone through every Mishnah. So what could Rav Papa be talking about? So the Gemara says, what could it possibly be? And the answer is regel. Now, does anything seem strange about that? Michael, Gavin, Arthur?
That seems strange because you went through everything. How can regel be the one that's different?
Yeah. Exactly. We went through regel. And again, if we went through the Tordas of regel, and those Tordas of regel, if you remember, was in the animal's natural way of its movement. So the primary case of regel was the foot, the way an animal tramples on things. And your subcategories of regel are with an animal's body, in the way the body moves, with the hair of an animal. We gave an example that Rabbi Cohen gave of a yak, whose hair gets entangled. The backpack on an animal, the bit in its mouth, the bell around its neck, and all these things, if they end up damaging the way the animal naturally moves, those are the tordas of regel. It's the most common damage because every time the animal moves, which is all the time, that's the case where damage can occur. And we saw that the subcategories of regel are exactly the same as the primary categories of regel. So this can't be a case where Rav Papa is talking about. So what could it be? The cat's just hang on a second. I've just got to let the cat in again. Blanks the shear. Just give me a sec, guys. Okay. So
Damon, can I take a stab at it?
Yeah, of course.
Is it possible that is it to do with the public domain, that the public domain only applies to the toldot and not to the avot?
I think that's a great question. What we see here is the exemption of regel. In other words, the unique category of regel is that you exempt in the public domain. The tordos are exactly the same as the av there. It is a brilliant question. And the reason how we derive this with regel, it says, if your ox creates damage in the field of another. And when it says in the field of another, it means that field must be owned by somebody else. So therefore, it excludes the public domain in terms of responsibility, whether it's the tordos or the av. And the reason, I think it's a brilliant question. And the reason being is that there were public walkways in the public, in the domain, because animals would have to have a thoroughfare. However, there were areas which were also private within the public domain. So, for example, if you're selling in the public domain, but you had your own, a tent where you had utensils, etc., the animal had no business going there. An individual could come and buy produce. So if, for example, because you turn around and say, well, if you exempt all the time, why mention it? Because, your car's not going to go through somebody's house. So why would it go inside the living room where it could damage a utensil? So clearly there must have, by that, been a case where there were certain areas within the public domain that the animals had a thoroughfare. I'm just thinking by logic. And other areas where you would have a more commercial area where you would sell utensils and things that were of a delicate nature, where the animal had no business being. And we learn even in Shane that if an animal chomps at a shuk, it had to replace the food that it ate, even in the public domain, where you have that exclusion, from what I know. So it was a good question. Both the tordos and the av is exempt in the public domain. So let's learn what it is. Does anybody else have a question or an insight?
That was my best.
Damon?
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
Sorry.
Don't get, if you've learned it, then that's not a solution. That's just repeating what you've learned. Is it something?
To me?
Yeah.
No, just something I was thinking about.
Yes.
I mean, it's something I heard a while ago. Is it to do with the fact that when an ox is walking normally, it does damage? Like, let's say on a regular walk, but it's actually, and that's different to the one with when it actually stampedes or kicks. Like if it kicks a stone by accident, is that what you're talking about in this area?
Okay, so you are on the right sort of track. And in fact, this is what it talks about. There's a special law, okay? And it's a law known as Tzroros, okay? And that Rav Papa is referring to liability to pay half damages for damages caused by pebbles shot up from the feet of one's walking animal. So in other words, Arthur's exactly on the right track. Does that make sense, guys? Or
I was actually thinking about that. I knew about that exception because you brought it up before. And I was thinking about that, but anyway, it's too late now.
So what it's talking about, according to Rashi, is that an animal was flying past. Sometimes they used to use horse for transport, etc. And a pebble flew out underneath and broke utensils lying nearby. So in that particular case, just turn off my phone, guys. I don't know if you want to do the same thing, because I know they can ring otherwise. Just turn off my phone. So we're talking in a case, Tzroros is a special law, and that is a law from Moshe of the oral tradition, Halacha le Moshe miSinai. So what I wanted to ask you guys is a question here. Why is this a case of regel specifically?
Wouldn't that be because... Okay, Karen, you go first, Kabb.
No, I don't really have an answer.
Was it Marco that was going to suggest something?
Sorry, just repeat the question again. Sorry.
Okay. So we learn, this is a special law from Moshe Rabbeinu, Halacha leMoshe Misinai, and we learn this from oral tradition, that only half damages are paid in this case, when the animal's damages caused by pebbles shooting out from under its feet, from one's walking animal, and it damages something, Tzroros. So why would we think this is regal?
Because it's from the leg. I mean, he's walking in the ground, and it's basically a stone flying from a kick, but by a walking kick, not like shoots out when he's going. So it's related to the foot.
I'm pleased you
moves the stone.
Defined it. I'm pleased you defined it as a walking kick, as opposed to a intent to damage kick. So that's a good point. Very good point. What was Mark going to say?
I think it could also be shame. Because
in what way?
Because an animal could also, for its own comfort, or itch, strike its foot to relieve an itch and kick up a stone. It's part of physical relief.
So, according to this, it wouldn't fit that definition simply because it's described as pebbles that shot up from under the feet of one's walking animal. Meaning it didn't seem that the animal was in discomfort and was trying to relieve a thorn or something like that. But so it wouldn't classify that. But so Arthur, you were dead on the mark. When you said one's walking animal, a walking animal, the way an animal naturally walks, in other words, it's not kicking from irritation. So, for example, if you kick the stone, say it kicked a utensil because it wanted to damage that utensil and was irritated, and that piece went flying, that would be, any guesses?
Karen.
That would be Karen, because the animal's intent is to do damage. But this is a case of one's walking animal. That's what it says, according to this is what Rashi says in the Gemara. Okay? Now, so that would be a subcategory. But is a question, hopefully work it out. What it says, Rav Papa referred to the liability to pay half damages for damage caused by pebbles that shot out from under one's feet of one's walking animal. Now, Rav Papa is quoting the law from Moshe Rabbeinu in oral tradition. It's not Rav Papa. Papa's law. Could this appear to of half damages?
In Karen.
Good.
If it's in the first, if it's done it less than 3 times, what's it? Tamo? What's it called?
Yes, time. Correct. So, Gavin, that makes sense. Does everybody see how Gavin derived that? Marco, Arthur?
Yeah, well, you've mentioned it before.
No, well, I'm trying to make sure that you guys remember something.
Yeah, no,
No, I wouldn't have got the answer if you didn't mention it before.
Okay, so
Just
Gavin.
Remembered,
So Gavin, in a way, that's cute, but it's not fair to Marco, because Marco would have remembered it. I think Marco, from an etiquette point of view, didn't say anything because he didn't want to ruin the punchline for Arthur. So the reason why you could think it's Karen, Arthur, is because this is a rule regarding half damages. So the Gemara asks, why is it classified as a subcategory of regal? Why don't you perhaps consider it a subcategory of Karen? Okay, because they're half damages, and this is a question that both Tosfot and Rashba ask. Okay, because although it was damage caused by ordinary walking, the Gemara argues the fact that its law of payment resembles Keren. Maybe it should be classified as a tall dove Keren. Anybody got any insights regarding that?
Yeah. Has it something to do with intention?
Yeah.
Intention.
Good.
The fact that legal is no intention.
Good. So there are two damages. Marco hit on the first one, is that the intention, guys, what I want to do is plug in my headset because Jeff in the background has decided to use an angle grinder because he's doing tiling. And I just want to see if it blocks off the noise outside if I use the headset. Is the headset muffled?
No, it's fine. Perfect.
That's fine.
Okay. So Marco did hit onto something that the intent here is it's in the way that from under the feet of one's walking animal. So in no way does it resemble Keren in the intent of the animal. It's the most common form of damage of one's animal walking. The only way that we could have thought it was a subcategory of Keren was the fact that it was half damages. But if we examine it, what is the difference in Keren? And Gavin mentioned it. I'm going to ask Arthur because Arthur didn't do it yet as many times as Gavin did. Arthur, why is it not a...
James, I wasn't there for the whole question. I was helping Danny for a minute. So if you want to repeat what you're talking about, and I didn't hear it because my headphones didn't pick it up, just repeat it.
Okay, so what I'm saying to you is this. We know that it is half damages, and in that way it resembles Keren.
Okay.
Marco also brought an amazingly succinct point, is that the reason it's regal, and Gavin brought this point also, was that it was the normal way an animal walks, because it said that shot up under the feet of one's walking animals. So it only resembles Keren in the fact that it's half payment. So the Gemara wants to propose, according to Rashba and Tosfot, that maybe you should classify it as a subcategory of Keren. And they said the reason not is the intention of the animal is a normal common way the animal walks. It's not intending to do damage. I mean, it's the unique characteristic of the animal, not the intent. There's no intent for damage.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm asking you is, according to some that say, well, maybe you should consider Keren because it's half payment. In what way does this not resemble the half payment? In other words, I don't expect you to know this answer, Arthur, but I need you to say to me, based on the revision we've done so far, under Keren, under what circumstances, guys, don't help him because you're a little bit ahead, do you pay half damage? And on what circumstance do you pay muad, full damage?
Okay, so under half damage is if it's, let's say, totally something that the animal does naturally without any intent behind it. Okay.
Not at all.
Okay, I'm just guessing.
No, Arthur, you're guessing. So what you need to do is you need to do a little bit of revision, because what I'm asking you guys to do is, up until the dafs that we got to, just to put in 10 minutes a day going through Safarium. And what we learned very clearly is everything to do with Shane and Regal are full payments. Full payments. Anything to do with Mave, full payment. Everything to do with fire, Have is full payment. Everything to do with pit is full payment. The only case where you've got half payment and full payment is the case of Keren. And this is revision that one should know up until this point. This is something one should know. We've done it in every daf. So, does Arthur Marco have a suggestion here?
I've got something.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay, so in my opinion, the damages, the payment should never determine where the toldot sits, because it's irrelevant. It's not
irrelevant. It's not always irrelevant, but it's a good guess. It's not always irrelevant. So far, it's been irrelevant.
I would have thought the actual damage itself and how it's caused and all that type of stuff, the intention behind it, how it's caused, all that type of stuff determines in which category it goes in, and that the payment outcome is irrelevant. That's what I would have thought. Sorry.
Can I ask you a question, James? Oh, can I try and answer it? Is it maybe that if it's common and not common, that makes a difference? Let's say it's a common thing that happens or not a common thing animal does. Would determine.
Whose phone's button?
I've got a delivery. Hold
it. Okay. Thank God life goes on, and I'm happy about that. It's good. in Israel, in South Africa, we should be so lucky as to have deliveries. Okay. So, Michael, what I'm asking, let me be specific, is what is the case when you pay half damages in Keren, and in what case do you pay full damages in Keren? This is something we've gone through again and again.
When you're talking about, you spoke about the warning aspect, where you've got an animal that's committed infringement once, I think it's 3 times, and then afterwards it's full payment. Otherwise, it's half payment. And you spoke about a tame animal versus a wild animal. I'm just trying to get my thoughts around that. But there were half damages when it was initially done by a tame animal by mistake. But if the animal done it more than 3 times, then there was full payment.
Okay, so you made one great statement and one statement we just need to correct.
Yeah.
So if an animal damages up to 3 times and including 3 times, it is considered a tame animal, and more than 3 times, in other words 4 times,
it's a wild animal.
It's considered muad, which is a habitual, meaning the animal's nature is that it's now there is a mistake.
And then there's full payment.
There is one mistake you made. You said with the animal, when it's tame, it doesn't intend to damage. It's not the case, because the very just give me one sec. The case of Keren, the unique characteristic of Keren, whether it's a tam or a muad, is the animal's intent is to damage. So even when it's a case of it being tame, meaning it isn't habitually a damager, at the time it wants to kill or maim and injure. It wants to stop whatever's irritating it. So its intent is absolutely to damage even when it's tame. The only difference between and that's why I prefer the Hebrew word tam, because tame implies that it's chilled and it doesn't have a bad intention. So the word tam, you're not going to have that English association, and I understand where you got it from. So tam means that animal is attempting to damage, but it has done certain incidents of it. When it's more than 3, it becomes muad. And what does muad actually mean apart from habitual gora? The word muad literally means warned, because the owner is warned in a court of law that he is obligated for full damages after that point.
Okay, but we're referring to a domestic animal, or because a wild.
It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference. For the sake of it is from having a reptile as a pet. All animals are wild. I mean, this cat, I tried to move it the other day, and it clapped me in the forehead like it was Mark Tyson, with its claws and everything, like Freddy Krueger with the. So even a domestic animal is like teeth and claws, and body, and especially bigger animals, body that can damage, and sharp objects like a horn, etc. So no animal is predictable. That's what we're trying to say. It's not like a domestic dog, and there are cases. Let's take this to modern law. You've got a dog, and that dog suddenly turns on one of your guest children. You can't turn around and say, well, listen, Fluffy has never bitten anybody before, because an animal isn't predictable. So unless the dog is put away, you're responsible if the dog bites somebody.
Okay, so this is the only situation where you've got a differentiation between getting, the one hand, before you warn fully, a half payment, and then subsequently a full payment. Once you've received on the 3rd time. Once you've received the warning and it's the 3rd time, you'll pay.
No, it's after the 3rd time. It's the 4th time.
After the 4th time. Yeah. All right. So that's the only case where we can differentiate between I've told us, and that's got to do with payment.
No, we went through this again before. What you asked me 2 years ago is that you said to me, is it that the Tzroros pays the half and the Av pays the full? You were trying to determine if the difference was the Tzroros and the Av. And what we said is the case of Keren that's mentioned biblically, scripturally, which makes it an Av, is a case of a Tamon and Muad. So both the Av as well as the Tzroros are responsible for full payment or partial payment, not depending on whether it's a Tzroros or an Av, but depending on how many times it has gored.
Okay.
All right.
Got it.
So, if you sum it up, all right, there's nothing we have found so far where the Av and the Tzroros are different.
Okay. But what we're on to now is a question by the Gemara that says to us, well, why isn't it Keren? Because it seems with Keren there's half damages and there's full damages. Okay. And we say it seems to, according to Rashba and Tosfot, it would seem to resemble it. And the Gemara said it's actually a subcategory of regel for the reason that you guys explained, that it's the natural way that an animal walks or runs, but it's not done from intent to damage. A stone or a pebble that's shot up from under the foot of an animal through its natural movement. So that's why it's a subcategory of regel. But why can't we say it's Keren in terms of half payment versus full? Because it seems to resemble Keren in that respect.
And let me take another step. All right. Okay. Yeah. So one is definitely intention. Okay. I've mentioned that before.
Yes. What's another reason? You mentioned
so intention is one I have mentioned. The second one is that there's no warning to the animal with pebbles. He doesn't do it 3 times. He does it indefinitely.
That is brilliant. That's it. That's it. Yeah. That's exactly it, guys. Listen, how can you warn an animal? In other words, it's not that how you're going to protect on something like that, simply because people rode animals in those days, or they put carriages in front of animals, or they put backpacks in terms of animals. This was a hazard that, through no fault of its own, it could have caused. It's not that you're warning it, because why are you warning the owner? I'm asking you, why is it that you're warning the owner in the case of Keren?
Because it's an act of intention. It's not. It's an act of intention. The animal's got a propensity to do that more than.
Okay, the second statement.
There's rebels in accident.
No, your second statement is right. It doesn't have a track record of doing it. No. Okay, so what we're going to do is, if we get cut off, we're going to go on another Zoom session. Because when we put them together yesterday and the day before, they were 59 and 58 minutes. So the actual recorded one is only an hour. It doesn't exceed that. But sometimes we have connectivity issue. We're doing a brocha. I'm getting to see you guys, and I miss seeing your faces. That's why I love to see it in the beginning. So we're going to just join us with the others. So we're going to redo a Zoom session, because I think this question and answer thing is much more engaging than me just telling it over. You can watch a million YouTube videos, but you're not going to learn it this way. And when I gently, lovingly say to you guys, you need to do Chazorah, it's not because I'm trying to pick you out. It's because I want you to learn. I'm saying is, if you put in 10 minutes each, you're going to have an understanding that I'm not expecting you to put in hours. All I'm saying is, if you put that little bit of time and you review it every day, you'll see why we're building this. And because otherwise a person can forget. So I was never, if somebody takes a stab at new material and they don't know, I'm chilled. If it's something that we've taken a stab at a guess, where everything we've learned has said to the contrary, it means all of us haven't done enough revision. And it's not you, it's me, it's Gavin, it's Marco, etc. So we need to just at least know what we've done so far. And it's not to pick anybody else. It's just that I want you to get a lot out of this. So we're going to start a new Zoom session when this cuts off. Marco did say one great point, which I'll repeat in the next section. It's a fact.
Okay. I want to take a stab. I think I know the answer. But go ahead.
We need to repeat this on the new one. Is the fact of it is, the Gemara is trying to have mercy on somebody that's coming and said, listen, my animal went AWOL. I didn't know it was going to attack some kids. The kids were irritating it. So the animal tried to butt the fence and clapped one of the kids on the leg. It's not my fault. But if this keeps happening, you don't really care about the people or property that this animal's damaging, then you deserve to pay full payment, because you can't keep getting into these sort of messes, because you must know that the animal's nature is one of an aggressiveness because of its habitual nature, whereas when an animal walks naturally and stuff flies out from under its feet, obviously the ground is not smooth, gravel, it can happen. It's nobody's intent and it's nobody's fault. So what happens is generally shops or more commercial areas that were in public areas that were privately owned kept their stuff away from where the animals ran, I'm assuming, because in this particular case, you're going to have vessels and utensils smashing all the time. Mm. Or clapping somebody in the eye. I mean, we're not necessarily even talking about that. What if a horse comes past, the stone hits? You see in the Western theatres, these girls, and they're in the, and they're walking next to the horse, and then they're having a conversation. But it smelled like manure, and there was dust and stones everywhere. There wasn't Linksfield Park Clinic or Moore Park. These things ended up in tragedy and crushings, where an animal would bang into a person or clip a stone and hit somebody in the temple. It's not like a John Wayne Western. These things didn't end well. So people naturally have a common sense to create decent walkways where the animals would run. And people that had private utensils would have the common sense to build it away from the animal. But there's certain places where the animal shouldn't have been running or moving particularly fast. How we ended off last time is we said it does almost resemble Keren in the fact that it's half payment and full payment. But what we wanted to say was as follows, is the reason for the half payment in Keren is because for the first 3 times the animal is tam. And after that, the animal is known as a habitual gora, and the owner is muad. It's warned that this is a habitual gora, so that the courts do not have mercy on the person whose animal is causing this, because they've been warned many, many times before, to the extent that it becomes full payment. So this does not resemble Tzroros, which is regal, because the owner here, it's not his fault. It's in the way that an animal runs on a carriage, etc., and a stone is bound to fly up. So it's not for that reason that we pay, because of the tam aspect. So therefore, it can't be under the category of Keren. Also, there is one major difference, and that major difference is as follows, is that you pay, according to the halacha l'Moshe Sinai, we pay from the choice property. Okay? We pay from the choice property. But in Keren, what do we pay for, guys? Just give me 1 second. I just want to close the door. We have to learn. I'm going to teach Arthur a rule, because Arthur's a bit behind some of us. Now, the rule is as follows, is that on the rule of Keren, there are 2 leniencies. The one leniency is that you pay for a tam half the damages payment. But the other leniency is you pay from the body of the damages animal, which is known as hagufa. So let me explain to you what I mean. Is that say you've got Shimon, and Shimon's bull damages Reuven's bull, okay? And Reuven's bull is worth 300 zuz. And Shimon's bull, the bull that damages, is only worth 100 zuz. And say it damages with its horns and it gores it. And it ends up damaging it or killing it to 300 zuz worth of damage. Okay? You, because it just managed to puncture a lung or whatever the case may be. So you would think that the tam damage would be half of that, which is 150 zuz. Is that correct, guys? I just need your acknowledgement. So again.
Yeah.
Okay, again, you have a case.
Is it the first time, or is it the third time? Or the fourth time?
It's a tam. The animal is a tam. It's
okay,
a tame
tam.
animal.
Okay.
Shimon's bull takes a disliking to Reuven's bull, and it basically rams it and punctures the lung, and the animal is severely injured or dies, and the full more damage would be 300 shekels. Let's just say if the animal doesn't die, but it's 300 shekels worth of damage. That would be the full damages. So, guys, I'm plugging in my headset because the angle grinder is going off again. Does everybody understand that? That it's half damages? But this is where there's this other leniency. When you pay from the gufa of the animal, you pay only to the extent of what the damaging animal is worth. Okay, so let me explain it to you like this. So the Shimon's bull that damages Reuven's bull is the damager. Okay, the damager animal here is only a puny little thing, and it's only 100 zuz. So although it's a case of tam where you should pay half the 300 zuz worth of damage, which would be 150 zuz, you only pay 100 zuz because the damager's animal is a puny little thing. So it's the second leniency that's part of Keren. It's not the damaging animal that weight is taken into account. You pay for the damages of the animal that is damaged, but the animal that does the damage, the damager, that's the gufa of the animal you use to make payment from. Because what you have to do then is you have to either make restitution of what that animal is worth, the damages animal, to the person that you've damaged, or sell that animal and then the value of that animal pay from the gufa of the animal. So if it happens to be that the animal is a heavy animal and it's only worth 200 zuz, so you pay the half damages of the 150 and the guy gets 150. But if it's a puny little animal and it's only worth 100 zuz, the damages animal, to make restitution to the damaged animal's owner, you would pay from the gufa, from the body of the animal, which is, in this case, only 100 zuz. I want to know from Michael, Arthur, and Gavin if each one of you are clear on this principle before we go on.
Sorry. I missed something there. Just you have to repeat it. Just mention damager, damagee. All right, you were just sorry. You were the numbers. I don't know if you were getting the numbers wrong or.
No, I wasn't getting the numbers.
Just sorry. Just repeat it.
Okay. So there are two. Michael, before we go on to Michael, has Gavin and Arthur got it right, or you're still confused, guys? It's not a problem. I'm here to.
No, I just want to ask you a question, and when you answer, Michael, if you can just do this. What happens if I understand it fully, but so I want to ask you. So then
ask the question you're going to ask, because I know the question you're going to ask is, how does it become muad if you have to sell the ox? That's a different discussion than Gemara.
No. I want to ask what happens if the damager animal is worth more than the damaged animal.
Then you only have to pay a half payment anyway. Great question.
Half payment of what though? Of your animal, the damager animal, or the damaged animal?
All right, guys. All right. Arthur, do you also have it unclear? And then I can repeat it.
No, I have it perfectly clear. Basically, if the animal's worth 300, that's the animal that got damaged. Okay, you only pay up to 150 if he's tam. If the attacking animal that did it, is less than value of the 150, you have to sell the animal or pay the 100 up to 100. Okay, but if it's over, okay. It's half damages.
You got it right up until there. No.
Okay.
All right, guys, let me repeat it again. It's actually not such an easy concept. All right. So I'm going to use the example again. My numbers are correct. There are two leniencies with regards to Keren. The one of it is if it's 3 or less times, it's known as a tam. In other words, a non-habitual goring animal. If it's 4 or more times, that's known as muad, which means a warned animal, because the nature of the animal is an aggressive animal. And based on that aggression, of a track record, of a history of damage, it's a full payment. So again, muad is more than 3 times, so it's 4 or more times. the animal is muad, meaning it's got a history and a pattern of aggression, and therefore there's no leniency that the court holds to the damaging ox, the one that is the aggressor, because he should have looked after his ox better. The tam, which is the ox that is intent to damage, same as the muad, all of these cases are where the ox intention is to damage, but it doesn't have a track record history of being an aggressive animal if it's 3 or less times. And in that case, the first leniency is that you have to make half payment of the damage. Whatever damage that your ox did to another ox, you have to pay half of that damage for time. So let's just get that first part right. Does that make sense to everybody?
100%.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
makes good sense.
Okay, good. So what I'm saying is this next part is the chidush, is the new part, is that we learned in the beginning that you pay from the choice property of the damager, okay, in the beginning of the Mishnah. Okay. But Keren is an exception because the courts show mercy with a tam animal in another respect, is that you pay from the gufa of the damager, not the damaged party. So let me just give it to you again, and we'll go through it a few times, and then when Arthur does the video, we can always edit off the first couple of times, so you guys, so we can get it right. So again, Shimon has an ox, right? This ox is not a big ox. It's a smallish ox, but it's an aggressive little thing. And what happens is it doesn't like Reuven's ox, and it takes a charge, and it calls Reuven's ox. Shimon ox calls Reuven's ox, and it punctures it in the lungs, and it's 300 zuz worth of damage. It either kills it, and that animal is worth 300 zuz, or damages to the capacity of 300 zuz. That's the damage that was caused, okay? Or the entire animal was worth 300 and killed it, and then you have to pay for restitution. Whatever the value of that damage is or death, you pay for that value if it was muad, full value. Now, if it's a tam, we say you only have to pay then, in that case, half, which in this case would be 150. But then the other leniency kicks into play. That Shimon's bull, the bull that was the aggressor, the damager, we then sell Shimon's bull, if Shimon doesn't have the financial equivalent, and that he only got 100 zuz for his bull on the market, okay? Or he got a loan in lieu of the bull for 100 zuz. Okay. He only has to pay that body of the animal, hagufa. It's not often that he pays 100 zuz. It wasn't the point of 100 zuz that he's paying. It's the point that you pay the gufa for the animal. If the animal was worth 120 zuz, you pay 120. So the second leniency is if the body of the damager's animal is less than the half tam damages, you pay up until half damages. And the term up to means if the bull is less in value or weight, the damages bull, then you only have to pay up until that amount. You don't have to necessarily even pay half.
So what you mean is, let's say the gufa of the animal is only worth 75. Okay,
now, the gufa is what animal? I want you to define what we mean by the gufa.
The body of the animal of the attacker, who attacked Reuben's bulls, only worth 75. You'd only be liable for 75 because you're paying for the gufa of the attacker and not the person who got attacked.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That is dead perfect.
Yeah. All right. So basically, if your loan, you can only get a loan up to a certain amount, and it's 50 short of the half payment that you would have had to pay, say 150, and you only get 100 loan, you only pay 100. You don't. That's all.
I need to correct you there. I need to correct you there. Michael, it's not about the loan that you'll get. So I'm saying you've got two choices in that case. Yeah, say your bull damages my bull, okay?
Yeah.
And my bull, the damage caused is 300 zuz.
Yeah.
Whether you killed the animal outright and it's worth 300 zuz, the vet bulls are 300 zuz. You owe me 300 zuz. If it's a tam animal, you only owe me 150. But then what you have to do is, in order to recover it, the other leniency the court gives you is it's the gufa the body of your animal, the damages animal that's going to damage my ox that you do. So there's two choices you have. You either sell your ox. No, this is where we have to make it. It's not about the loan you can secure. It's about the gufa of the animal. So if you don't have the money, you sell your ox, and on the market you only get 100 zuz or 75 or 120. That's the amount of damages you pay for, even though you should only technically pay for half the damages at 150, because the second leniency is you pay in the body of the animal. It's not like the body of the animal is worth 120 zuz and you could only secure a loan for 75 zuz. That's irrelevant.
No.
Because some people would pay, if they were wealthy, they liked that ox, they'd pay the financial equivalent of what that ox is appraised at. Okay. And either they get a loan for the appraisal in lieu of the money where they have to give it after a period of time, or they sell that animal, lose out on the animal, and get that value. But it's not about the loan you can secure. It's about the appraisal of what that damages animal is.
Okay, and if it's only worth 120, you pay 120, even though...
Whatever it's worth.
Let me try...
And then no more.
Just hang on. It's up to half that payment of the time of the full payment. If it's muad, we don't work on the gufa of the animal. This is something to remember. If it's muad, the two leniencies fall away. Mainly, if you damage my ox and my damages are 300 zuz, or you kill my ox and the ox is worth 300 zuz, you pay the 300 zuz. That's number one. And number two, you don't pay if your damages ox is only worth 150 from the gufa of the animal. That luxury you only have when your animal is tamed. But when you've been warned, you pay from your choice property, or if you don't have choice property, meaning highest quality property, you pay the financial equivalent of the damage you cause. Those two leniencies are only with tam.
Okay. So I'll try explaining maybe in like modern terms and to see if I can let it. A person's driving a BMW, right? And you driving a Toyota.
No, you can't, because you can't. Because you can't say, no, I don't want to do this, because you can't use an example of what the bucky weighs and what the bucky's worth. Don't use a modern example for this. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Because you want to say the bucky that you're damaging is only worth X amount. I don't want to use a modern example for this halachic principle.
Okay, percent.
Okay. Because in modern law, this doesn't work. That you're saying that the vehicle that damaged is only worth X, and therefore you only work on what the damaging vehicle's worth. You can't do that because, firstly, there's no Sanhedrin anymore. There's no based in that can overturn a payment today of it being muat, etc. So it wouldn't work today without a proper Sanhedrin where that sort of law can be imposed. But firstly, I'm pleased, Arthur, because you were the first one that got the principle, and you were the last one that joined the Shir. So I think that's incredible. So since our last discussion, guess who's done the work?
I've been learning from those sites.
Exactly.
Just going through the lessons, I would say I probably spend about an extra hour a day. That's it.
I'm happy. Gavin, do you understand what's going on?
No, 100%. My question was answered. You limited, your liability is limited to half the value of the damaged animal. That's the limit of your liability. And if the goof is less. No, you are. You limited.
No, Gavin, no. You've made a flaw in your statement. No, I'm correct. Gavin, just let me finish, and I can point out the flaw in your statement. You don't pay half the amount of what your animal is worth. Again, you're missing a step. My animal, the damaged animal, if you were muat, you pay 300 zuz, right? Let me just tell you the flaw in your statement. And therefore, you owe me 150. If you can only get 100 zuz, you pay 100. But you don't pay half of what your animal is worth. If your animal is worth 100 zuz, you don't pay me 50 zuz. And that's what you said.
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. So what I said is that you limited. I raised the question. I said, what happens if the goof of your animal is worth more, the damager is worth more than the other one?
I'm saying the statement you just made now.
No, the statement I made now, no, Damon, you didn't hear me correctly. My statement is specific. Okay. I said you cannot pay more than the value of the damaged animal. So if the damaged animal is 300, you limit it to 150. You don't have to ever pay more than 150.
No, but what you said before is you said half the damage of the damages animal.
No, of the damaged animal. You never pay more than half the value of the damaged animal, which is 150.
That's fine.
And then if the value and if the appraised value of that animal is only 100, then you only have to pay 100.
That's fine.
That's all I was saying. So what I was saying originally, I asked you a question. I said, what happens if the weight of your animal is higher than the other animal? So that doesn't make sense because you're limited to always to the value of the damage, and you never have to pay more than 150. Correct.
No, you never have to pay more than half the damage of
half the damages. Correct. That's all I was trying to say. It was in relation to a question that I asked prior to us going to this whole discussion. And I think this clause was put into place purely to protect poor people.
The rich were also given the benefit of this law. That it wasn't a discrepancy purely for the poor.
Yeah, but the chances are the rich had bigger animals, which would be.
That's actually a nice point. So that's a great point.
So they wouldn't have had this problem because all the animals would have weighed at least the same, if not more than the damaged animal.
I think that's a great insight.
So definitely it's there to protect the poorer people.
Okay, I think that's a great insight. I never would have thought of that. Sure. Gav, that's pretty good.
All right, thanks.
There is a difference here with this rule by Moshe Rabbeinu. The reason it's suggested, apart from the way the animal walks normally without intent to do damage, that's why it's a subcategory of regal. The other reason we give is that you pay from choice property. You don't pay from the gufa of the animal, according to the rabbis. Because in Exodus 22:4 it says, you must pay with superior quality land, as it states, the choices of his field and the choices of his vineyard he shall pay. So what we're saying here is that this resembles regal, because regal and shane, you pay from your choice property, meaning that you don't pay from the gufa of the animal. If you don't have property, you pay the financial equivalent of the full damages, but you don't have that leniency of the animal. And that's why that can't resemble Keren, this law of Tzroros, and it resembles regal.
Yeah, no, good point.
So, no, it's not my point.
No, that's still a good point. Yeah. Listen, I need a toilet break for 1 second. Can we stop recording for 1 second? Sorry, I won't be long. Otherwise, I'm going to die. Thank you.
Okay, but yeah, I'm hearing a Dean in the background. All right. So, Gav, that point to me is great.
Thank you.
The fact that it has mercy on the poor, because a puny, thin animal would come from a poorer person. So it's such a kindness to the poor. I never would have thought of that. I thought it's brilliant.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, Damon, I didn't write it down, and my memory is not great. What's the actual definition of Tzroros?
Tzroros is the stress an animal causes you. I'm making a pun on the word Tzroros. It's Tzroros. Okay. Tzroros. Tzroros.
Okay.
Tzroros. So that's liability to pay half damages for damage caused by pebbles that shot up from under the feet of one's walking animal.
Okay. Got it.
Learn from Moshe Rabbeinu.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So now there seems to be a dispute in Gemara 16b, of Bava Kamma, where according to Rava, that he was saying, are you sure? Does he only pay from the body of the animal itself, or does he even pay from choice property? So what it seems is as follows, is that to Rava it was a matter of question whether we pay from the gufa of the animal or the person's choice property, but Rav Papa was clear that the damage must pay from other assets and not the gufa of the animal. Okay, so I just needed to add some clarity here. Is that Rav Papa is following the opinion by the rabbis that what makes it regal is the fact that we pay from choice property and we don't pay from the gufa of the animal. Otherwise, he said it would resemble keren. So Rava, who's got the question, this is not Rav, this is Rava, who's got the question, said, do we pay from the animal itself or do we pay from choice property? You would make. The Rashba brings a point, and he says that even though the general opinion, the accepted halacha, is that one must pay from the property, Rava is undecided on this point, and he reflects a lone view in the matter. And what he comes to say is that it's actually talking about the reason why it's regal is it was classified to exempt it from liability domain, and that's why. Okay.
So that's basically by process of elimination of all the others, it fits into their category the best.
Listen, at both the point, he is a lone opinion in the matter that he's questioning whether it's from the animal itself or from choice property. But according to Rav Papa, who holds by the rabbis, the two reasons it would be the fact that it's regal is that you pay from the choice property and not the gufa from the animal, and the fact that it's the animal's natural way of walking. And I'm assuming that you exempt in the public domain on all cases, otherwise it wouldn't be a regal. What I need to investigate was, do the rabbis generally exempt the stone in the public domain area? Does that make sense?
I would think so.
I would think so as well.
It's not their fault. Because in those days, I think a lot of, firstly, there were a lot of pebbles lying around, and they even like pebble roads to an extent. So it would, it definitely would have been in the public domain, and it's not their fault. They can possibly kick up a stone that can like a projectile that can probably go a couple of meters.
Okay.
So I would say that it absolutely would be exempt, in my opinion, humble opinion.
Damn, it's like your car that kicks up the stone when you're driving on the road. Just a normal thing. You weren't being aggressive. Just saying, like a tire can flick it up, so can
No. I'm so pleased you brought that up, Arthur. I'm so pleased you brought that up. That's not the case. Let me explain to you where it differs. That's very interesting, because in that case, it resembles. Remember, we learned yesterday. It's an interesting case that I need to bring up with Rabbi Cohen, because initially we learned where the Persian carpets land. That's a Tordav pit, and if it's while the stone is being hurtled, it would be a case of Tzroros. So I would wonder if there you are liable or where you're not, because if, for example, put you liable in the public domain, I wonder what Tzroros with regards to a vehicle with stones if you not. So maybe you're right, Arth. Maybe in the public domain there you also exempt. I need to ask Rabbi Cohen. I think you're right.
Yeah. I think according to the laws of the country, according to the laws of the country,
it's not like you didn't tie down a Persian carpet. It's not your fault, Arth. You're right.
Yeah.
It's a different case. Okay, so that we've dealt with that issue. I was open. Hopefully, I thought we'd cover more ground. Yeah. Okay.
I'm happy to be a millionaire by now. What can I say?
Do you think we did cover ground? I feel like we didn't really.
Damon,
We did?
I'll tell you one thing. It's not the ground we covered. It's what we absorbed was much higher than just having it given to us. Because you can cover ground and we absorb nothing.
Yeah.
You know? It's more like understanding we want to learn. It's not the ground. It's understanding we want to learn.
Correct. Arthur, I want to just elaborate on what Arthur said. So we learned something last night in the shiur where there was a guy called Doug, and he was at the time of King David, and they spoke about the fact that he was a Talmid Chacham. I mean, he was a genius of a guy, but they say that he swallowed the Torah as opposed to digesting it. So to swallow it is to take it without actually absorbing it and without having full intent behind it. So we absolutely digesting it as opposed to swallowing it. So it takes time to digest.
It does.
If you cover ground, you swallow it, Damon. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
I mean, Dan, I'll give you an example.
It's not a race.
Yeah, Dan, I'll give you an example. Like, I was learning daf yomi, right? And I was swallowing it, but I wasn't understanding it. I mean, I got through things with half the stuff I didn't understand. I mean, I heard it, but I didn't understand it. So it wasn't the point of, how much I can listen to it, how much I can understand and regurgitate and put inside me, that I can, use it, not just have it like be confusion, if you want to call it.
Damn, it's very different when you're on the receiving end. You understand this a lot better than we do, and I don't know what the rush is. There isn't a rush. I mean, it's more important.
I feel like I'm letting you guys down. I'm not rushing.
No, not at all. If anything, we're probably letting you down because you want to go quicker.
I don't want to go quicker. I'm here to serve you guys. Honestly.
No, we're getting lots of stuff here. Trust me. This is like there's lots of stuff to think about when you're not familiar with it. It's a mountain full. So even like now afterwards, I'm going to go back and listen to this recording, or pretty much a lot of it, just to kind of like rehash it in my mind. I don't think that it's just like it's we're digesting it and digesting it, and each time it gets better. So the pace is the pace as it's meant to be, and the discussion between all of us governs that. And the discussion is good between all of us because that's where the pace is. That's where we are. The other they just happen. That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, listen, when we get up to Shemayim, Damon, and Hashem says, regurgitate everything you've learned, we'll say, all right, no problem, but only the first 10 dafs from Bava Kamma, we can regurgitate that. So as long as we can choose the books that we can regurgitate. Listen.
Are you guys enjoying civil law, by the way? I don't know how you're feeling about it.
I love it.
It's great, man.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Great.
It's what I like the fact that it's something we could even apply to our own real life because it's teaching us a different aspect that people don't think about in law. I mean, it's just interesting. It's just fascinating. Not boring.
You know what I thought about the other day when I was reading this book about the top economic inventions or developments that changed the world. And one of them was insurance. Because after you would have a case, I was thinking about it, where you say, listen, my bucky is only worth 27 grand. Are you 50? I can't help you, but I can pay 27 grand. So I thought about it. Without insurance, you're absolutely right. It would apply today. That you only pay from the gufa or the value of the vehicle, because if you don't have insurance, it's possible. You can say, what are you going to do? Get blood out of a bucky? Or blood out of a stone? Well, the stone hit you, and hopefully it didn't create blood. But this is all I've got. So, I mean, and insurance itself, you can't even imagine what a marvelous thing it is.
Yeah.
It is. It's a marvel of the modern world.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's to get round this problem.
What?
It's to get round these laws.
Yeah.
It's to protect the poorer person, it is. Insurance.
So what's interesting, the point that you bring up is it has sensitivity to the poor, But the one thing that you have to learn in halacha is that you cannot favor the poor over the rich. So this is also an interesting halacha. It's fact, is that although there are leniencies to the poor, taking their financial circumstances to account, just like you cannot find favor for the rich because they're powerful, you cannot find in favor of the poor because you have mercy and feel sorry for them. Okay. What you've got to do is the law has to apply to all. Okay. However, there are ways that, for example, the poor could maybe make restitution in terms of their labor, if they were indentured. Like we learned a case, Gavin, a pure example is a Jew that steals from a Jew. If he has the money, he pays it back. If not, he becomes an indentured slave to give back his labor.
The recording's going to end.
No, it's fine. So in that case, we don't have mercy on the poor nor the rich. So the law would apply to both. That was the only point I